All life on Earth comes from water. Without water, there is no life. And it flows in an endless cycle. Lake Wolfgang in Austria's Salzkammergut region is one of the most beautiful places in the world. At the edge of the lake lies the White Horse Inn, made famous in the operetta of the same name. The hotel's heating system had grown bit by bit over the years. The various metal alloys had a detrimental effect on the water in the closed system. But after years of research, a surprising solution was found.
We
devoted intense study to this new technology and were initially quite skeptical. So we asked people who were already using Grandeur water, and we got two interesting kinds of information. One kind was technical. The technical information convinced us that using Grandeur water for our heating water would have a huge effect with regard to calcification of the pipes and the boilers. And we saw this huge effect when we started using it at the hotel. The second information was, if you will, metaphysical or philosophical. And I think it would be quite arrogant to say that we already know everything that can be known. Water is such a fascinating element that apparently has qualities that modern-day science cannot quantify. So today we're using Grandeur water throughout the hotel. We use it for the indoor swimming pool, for drinking water, and for cooking. And we have had positive experiences. The quality of our heating water has improved, and there is a lot less calcification. That makes us satisfied Grandeur customers, and we think the investment was well worth it.
Hotel owners today have to be very careful with their money, and investments have to be justified. So the question is, when will the White Horse Inn recover the cost of the two inconspicuous devices they installed in their heating system?
Certainly in less than 5 years. We have a mixed heating system with various parts that were installed over the decades, and we really had to use a lot of chemicals to prevent pump corrosion. It makes sense to use less chemicals, which are very expensive and not good for the environment.
The use of water revitalization in the hotel swimming pool is also seen as a blessing. Regular guests who've been coming for years notice that the water is now softer and more pleasant. Burning eyes and irritated skin are a thing of the past. Swimmers remain in the water considerably longer than they used to. The hotel's spa manager, Nina Unterberger, is enthusiastic about it.
We use it heavily in our wellness facility, in the oasis of the senses, in the indoor swimming pool. We also have it in the drinking fountain, and we have a vitamin bar that offers various kinds of tea and, in particular, Grandeur water. And it is very popular. Of course it's difficult. There are many things in nature that can't be directly demonstrated and that we can't yet prove with our scientific methods. But at the end of the day, you still have to accept that they exist. And that's exactly the way it is with Grandeur water. It makes people feel good, it's healthy, and it's natural. You don't always have to scientifically prove something for it to have a positive effect.
The so-called water revitalization invented by Johann Grander from the Austrian Tyrol has been around for 15 years. Grander technology works with revitalized water that apparently can impart its quality to other water. And innkeeper Helmut Peter has made another discovery as well.
Breweries are incredibly sensitive about their water because the best beer is made with nothing but hops, malt, and water. And these breweries have told us that Grandeur water improves their product and puts less stress on their equipment. And so we said, if they're doing it, then White Horse Inn can do it too.
Georg Dial has brewing in his bones. He was one of the first to experiment with revitalized water at his small private brewery at Osterberg in southern Germany. Water quality is of critical importance in making good beer. Is there a difference between beer made with water that has been revitalized and water that hasn't? Georg Dial wanted to get the answer from the State Testing Institute in Munich.
Immer wenn wir eine Sorte gewechselt haben, haben wir
Every time we switched from bottling one beverage to another, we used a bypass and a small pipe to fill the bottling machine with the new beverage. Then we sent these bottles to the local state testing and research institute to have them tested.
ohne das Weihenstephan wusste, die staatliche
We also sent normal samples for comparison without the Institute knowing about it. When they tested samples of revitalized beer and revitalized soft drinks, the test results were clearly better.
besser beurteilt worden. Dann, ja, bei den alkoholfreien Getränke ist man noch...
And in the case of soft drinks, I noticed something else. In the carbonated soft drinks, the taste is much smoother and the bubbles are much smaller. Taken together, this makes our carbonated soft drinks far more palatable.
Und dadurch ist die Bekömmlichkeit unserer alkoholfreien Getränke sehr viel höher.
The Bassi family produces cheese in Milan. Since they started using the Grandeur method to revitalize the milk, Bassi's cheese has a more uniform and constant acidity curve. That gives the cheese a natural taste that is pleasant on the palate and leaves no aftertaste.
I was really surprised at first, and I couldn't believe it at all because it seemed impossible from a logical point of view. I didn't think it was possible for something like that to work. From the very first time we used the Grandeur system, we found an improvement in the production of our milk and cheese. The bacteriological properties were a lot better too. The cheese and milk have more flavor and a better taste. The product is completely different from the way it was in the past.
Experts taking part in special tasting sessions noticed the difference immediately. In Hohenems, in Austria's westernmost province of Vorarlberg, the Dolce Vita ice cream parlor makes everything on the premises, from the cone itself to its delicious contents. It takes a lot of skill to make good ice cream. That's what gives it the wonderful taste, and the best ice cream makers are often reluctant to reveal their recipes. But one thing is clear. In making good ice cream, water quality plays a decisive role.
Last year, a newspaper conducted a survey on the quality of ice cream sold in Vorarlberg's ice cream parlors, and we got the top score, 9.7 out of 10 points. And Grandeur technology was certainly at least partly responsible. I found out about it from a friend who recommended that I try it. I was impressed with what he showed me and decided to install Grandeur in my home. After this first success, it seemed to make sense to try it out in the production of ice cream in my business. I would call the results sensational. Straight after installing the Grandeur device, our volume rose by between 15 and 20% depending on the flavor. That means we got more ice cream from the same amount of ingredients, and so we had to reduce the quantity of ingredients. Our ice cream became fluffier and softer. It incorporated more air, and the quality of the ice cream improved. The texture in the mouth improved amazingly, and people are now saying that we have the best ice cream in the land.
Und drum sagt man, dass wir das beste Eis im Land haben.
Pancakes as far as the eye can see. The Meister Frost company specializes in mass production of desserts that are sold frozen. While a good cook can never be replaced by a machine, the company keeps a sharp eye on quality.
Here we produce 3 tons of sliced pancakes for soup, a ton of Topfenstrudel, and about 30,000 cottage cheese pancakes. Since we started using Grandeur water, we have found that our products are simply easier to prepare. The dough is fluffier and easier to work. We used to have trouble producing puff pastry, but with Grandeur water, it is a lot easier to prepare. Our strudel has also improved, and our sales have increased. It's all very positive.
In Spain, Grandeur technology has been used for a relatively short time, but the advantages of using revitalized water have been getting around faster in this sunny country than in almost any other nation. Spain supplies the rest of Europe with fresh fruits and vegetables, even in the dead of winter, and the plants are carefully managed. The Herrero family's 10-acre avocado plantation in Vélez, Malaga has trees that are decades old. Irrigation has been a constant and difficult problem.
En este tanque echamos ácido nítrico para lo que es la limpieza de tubería y la cal.
This tank used to hold the nitric acid that we used for cleaning the water pipes. We had a big problem with calcium in the water. That's why we used nitric acid. But since we started using GRANDER, we haven't needed the acid at all.
Solíamos cada año desmontarlo todo y meterlo en un recipiente también con ácido nítrico para que se lavara. Y durante el tiempo de riego,
We used to have to take the pipes apart once a year and put the individual pieces into a container of nitric acid. During irrigation, we had to use a needle to get the calcium out of the pipes. In the course of only 2 weeks, about 10% of the pipes got blocked up. I used to make an inspection tour of the whole farm every 2 weeks because there were always some trees that weren't getting any water. That no longer happens. We still have problems with sand in the well, but we no longer have any problems with calcium.
Entonces cada 2 semanas tenía que dar una vuelta a toda la finca porque había algunos árboles que no regaban. Y ahora pues no, ahora hay alguno que se atora, pero es por tema de la arena, del pozo de arena. Ahora ya problema de cal no tenemos ninguno.
The earlier the harvest, the higher the price that the markets will pay.
One
experience we've had since we installed the GRANDER device is that the fruit reaches the right size for picking 2 months earlier than it used to. We were never able to harvest avocados here before March or April. Last year, we started harvesting them in December. That's between 2 and 2.5 months earlier than before we got GRANDER, and the fruit is bigger than before as well. Both the quantity and the quality have improved. The harvest is heavier, and we get lots more avocados as well. The first thing we noticed was that the avocados got bigger much earlier, and of course, because they're bigger, we are very competitive with the price. Avocados have to weigh 180 grams to be worth anything. The ones that weigh less than 180 grams are hardly worth harvesting. It takes a lot of skill to grow them the right size, and because we get the size we need earlier, we get a better price for them.
The Austrian organic farmer Alexander Moore confirms the Spanish experience with better plant growth.
When it comes to growth, you normally expect the plants to develop in a certain period of time. But GRANDER has changed all that. All the young plants develop much faster, and the plant physiology is stronger. Peppers are likely to drop their flowers when the temperature rises above a certain point. For both amateur gardeners and professionals, that means lower yields. But because of the water, the peppers are so well balanced that they don't drop their flowers, and extreme growth spurts seem to be pre-programmed. This year, I've cut them back sharply twice now, and they put out strong new shoots and continue to bloom with renewed vigor.
GRANDER technology has also become established in another completely different range of applications in recent years. More and more swimming pool operators in Germany, Austria and Switzerland are equipping their pools with GRANDER technology. Their experience, reduced use of chlorine, better water quality and fewer skin problems.
Before, we really had a problem with algae on the edge of the pool and in the pool itself. And we also had a heavy buildup of calcium deposits on our glass measuring equipment. But that's no longer the case.
Das Becken reinigt sich quasi von selbst.
The pool, more or less, cleans itself. It is a lot easier to clean, and we also use much less chlorine. We use about half the chlorine we needed before. The same applies to the measuring glasses. They get much less sturdy and calcified than before. We have a much higher water quality today, and we get very positive comments from the swimmers. The water is much more pleasant, and the people no longer get skin rashes or itchy skin. So far, we've only had positive feedback.
Animals are particularly sensitive to water. Birgit Minich had water revitalization installed at her riding stable. Her horse began drinking more water, and Birgit had another surprise as well.
Ja, meine älteste Stute,
My oldest mare, who is now 24 years old, always had circulatory problems in the summer when it got hot. That meant her hind legs would always swell up. She suffered from edema, and it seemed to get worse and worse until her legs got really swollen. I had to wrap them in warm bandages, keep an eye on her, and give her a diuretic to help get rid of excess fluid, as well as some medication to promote circulation. But it didn't really help. In general, it only worked as long as the treatment continued, but as soon as you stopped, the problem was back. But now that I've had Grander water for about 3 months, the problem has completely disappeared. Her legs are like those of a 3-year-old. She no longer has circulatory problems and no longer suffers from fluid retention. If someone had told me this would happen, I would not have believed it. But a horse can't fool herself into feeling better. She's become much younger. Apparently, this water affects her circulation, her whole body. It's just so obvious that something is making her more lively.
And the famous Lipizzaner horses at Vienna's Spanish riding school also enjoy Grander water.
How long did homeopathy, whose substances are diluted to the point that actually only the information is retained, have to struggle for recognition alongside traditional medicine? We are really delighted that several Austrians have succeeded in resolutely pursuing ideas that don't fit into mainstream science and have established them in spite of the criticism of the scientists. Today we have come together to honor Johann Grander for his achievements. His technology should point the way for today's researchers and also serve as a stimulus for the future. It should demonstrate that we are not yet able to completely analyze and understand nature, not even in the case of the most commonly researched medium up to now, water. So, this is a crazy man who invented something, maybe a charlatan. Possibly other strong words have been used. I can imagine the vitriol. And in this context, it is especially remarkable that a Russian scientific institution would take an interest in your ideas and try to verify or refute them.
Johann Grander has received 2 great honors. In the year 2000, the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences, which has 3 Nobel laureates among its members, awarded him its silver medal, the highest award ever made to a foreigner. A delegation from the Academy came to Jochberg in the Austrian Tyrol to present him with the medal. For many years they've been experimenting with Grander's water in Moscow, and they expect to make new discoveries about water in general. A year later, the Republic of Austria awarded Grander the Cross of Honor for Science and Art. The accompanying celebrations were a rare public appearance for Grander, who largely lives in seclusion. Isosport is the world's leading manufacturer of plastic materials for skis and snowboards. Grander water revitalization has been installed in its cooling system for a number of years.
We had problems because the water quality varied widely and caused difficulties with the cooling of our machines because of calcification and excess growth of algae. The only way we could eliminate these problems was by adding chemicals or biocides to stabilize the water. Cooling has a very important function. Plastics have to be cooled, and the quality of the cooling makes a huge difference in the quality of the final product. If you heat a plastic article at home, for example, and don't cool it immediately, it changes shape. It becomes bent or deformed. And exactly the same thing happens to our products if they are not cooled properly.
Werden und genau dasselbe passiert auch bei unseren Produkten, wenn sie nicht optimal gekühlt werden.
Before we installed the Grander revitalization system, the quality of our cooling water was sometimes very poor. I admit that I was very skeptical at the time. I thought it was more of an esoteric thing. But I soon had to admit that the quality of our cooling water was getting better and better after we started using this method. The water looks good enough to drink, and as I said before, algae and bacteria have almost disappeared. We have been monitoring the development of water quality for 1.5 years now, ever since we installed the revitalization system. Our experience is backed up by internal and external water analysis, which has confirmed the success of water revitalization.
Unsere Erfahrungen durch interne und externe Wasseranalysen und die geben mir eigentlich den Erfolg der Wasserbelebung recht.
Wiesenthal's Mercedes dealership in Vienna. If it's going to shine, it has to be washed to make it shine. You can't compromise on standards with this kind of motor technology.
Ich muss Ihnen ehrlich sagen, ich konnte nicht glauben dran.
I honestly have to say I couldn't believe it, and then I started reducing the amount of chemicals in the car wash. By the end of 6 months, I had reduced them by half, and the cars were just as clean. That was amazing. At the same time, I noticed something about the calcium deposits on the walls in the car wash. They were still there, but they were easy to get off. They had become so powdery. So I could stop using chemicals and clean the walls with normal cleaning agents. We wash about 12,000 vehicles a year, and we're saving money on chemicals. This is also very important for the environment.
Economy and environmental protection can go hand in hand. Economy was also the main motivation for Benedikt Suter from Metzingen. That's not surprising, considering that his business does 10 tons of laundry a day and uses gigantic quantities of detergents. Every % that he can save has a long-term effect on his balance sheet.
Die Wäsche ist nach wie vor vom Warenausfall her.
The fabrics hold up as well as ever, but we're using considerably less detergent. We definitely use 15% less than we did before. We've had the device for a year now, and it paid for itself within 6 months. The last 6 months have been pure profit.
Und seit einem halben Jahr ist es bezahlt, seit einem halben Jahr ist es reiner Gewinn.
In the final analysis, it saves us half a cent on every kilogram of laundry we wash. But over a year's time, that amounts to around 12,000 euros, considering that we do 8 to 10 tons a day. The laundry gets just as clean as ever. The stains that we couldn't wash out before are still there, and if we could get rid of them as well, things would be simply ideal.
Wenn das noch funktionieren würde, dann wäre es natürlich ideal.
The manufacture of blanks for DVDs is an extremely precise process. Like the manufacture of the Isosport ski blades that world-class skiers use to compete on the slopes, this is another high-tech field in which it is critical to keep the cooling cycle stable. Just as at Isosport, the company 3A Media was unable to get the materials to do everything they needed to do. But despite the experience at Isosport, 3A Media was initially extremely skeptical. Meanwhile, they have a year's worth of experience and are happy to talk about the surprising results.
A recordable DVD has a continuous groove from the inside out, similar to that of a record, but with a length of almost 4.5 kilometers and a height of only 160 nanometers. That is extremely small, and the tolerance is only 3 nanometers. So the most important thing is simply to have perfect cooling water. Initially, we had very serious production problems because of algae in the cooling water. We tried to solve it with inhibitors, heavy metal additives, and so on, but it didn't work. It didn't improve the water quality. Then we installed a GRANDER system, and since then we haven't had any more problems. It has been a very big change for the better. For the past year, we haven't had to change the water in our closed system. The water is almost good enough to drink. It probably is. We check it every week, and it is crystal clear. We no longer have any production problems with blocked up filters. We never even have to change them. The cooling water has become irrelevant to the production process. Before that, when anything went wrong, when anything didn't work or was giving us trouble, we always knew we had to check the cooling water first, before anything else. Something must be wrong with the cooling water. So you can really say that since we started using GRANDER water, we've been saving money and time, and the cooling water is no longer a factor that we have to worry about.
The use of GRANDER technology in industry is still in its infancy, but it looks very promising. Behind it all stands the modest man who was responsible for this invention. I never went to university, but I do know a thing or two about nature. I have always been a good observer, and this is how things were revealed to me. And if I don't know, I ask. I get the answer, and then I follow it. I let myself be guided from above, but not by the people down here. You know, with the people down here, you have to be a little stubborn and not let them guide you, or else you will be misled. Once people thought that water or a spring was something almost sacred, but not anymore. But there are no two identical springs. That's impossible. If you take two locations at the same altitude, but 400 meters apart, you will find different water at each location. And that's why the subject of water is so difficult. Science simply reduces it to H2O. That's a very convenient approach. But water has so much intelligence. It's amazing, so much more intelligence than air. But no one has ever researched it. If people, and scientists too, knew even just 1% of what there is to know about divine creation, the world would be a different place.